Hello and welcome to Money Life. Today we are going to talk about an important issue. I'm asking a question. Shouldn't regulators and the government be accountable for returning over, and hold your breath, look at this number, 82,000 crore of unclaimed money belonging to savers, investors, depositors, people like you and me, just because we haven't been able to get it back? Or the people who it's owed to have probably passed away and this rightfully belongs to their heirs and nominees. Now, the government is sitting on this money and it is accumulating and growing bigger and bigger every year. We Indians are so proud of our information technology prowess. We boast about the fact that so many major world-beating MNCs, tech MNCs, are headed by Indians. Fintech in India is booming, and every single bank or credit card company or NBFC, which is a non-banking finance company, shows off about the fact, including all the apps, mind you, loan apps, shows off about the fact that even if you borrow 5,000 rupees from them, they are able to track you, your office, your neighbors, relatives, and ensure that you're harassed and humiliated until they get the money back. Some of them track you even when you ditch an education loan and go abroad. So the next time you step into the country, they're able to get you. Why? Because of technology. They know how to get databases from all over. They know how to use social media, whatever you post anywhere in the world, and ensure that you return every single penny that you owe to them with interest. How is it that it doesn't work the other way? Which is that when you are not able to get the money back, they're just sitting on it. Nobody lifts a finger to track you, to even ensure that you're getting your dividends and that your shares are acknowledged. The entire onus is on you. Government sits on this money and is ballooned. In fact, this 82,000 crore number, and you have to compare it with various government budgets to know how big this is. This also is small. In fact, the actual number may be bigger. Now, look at what kind of money is this? This is insurance policies that are unclaimed, mutual funds where the proceeds have not been collected, interest and dividend on shares, mutual funds, provident fund. In fact, the whole fund has not been collected sometimes. Interest on it is accumulating. None of this money actually goes back in some cases, and the number of cases are large. Otherwise, this pool would not be so big. Last week, why are we discussing this? It started with a discussion last week when industrialist Harsh Goenka, it's a very interesting tweets, put out a little picture which we're showing on the screen and says 82,025 crore, shouldn't it be used to alleviate suffering of those who are adversely affected by the COVID phenomenon? I pointed out that this belongs to people who are suffering. It ought to go back to them. They probably don't know. There are people who probably who have died of COVID, and their families don't know that they had made investments. It will go into this unaccounted pool of money. Everybody wants to eye this money, but technology is never used to return it. These are, remember, if this is the kind of money, it's in provident funds and mutual funds, these are all probably middle class Indians who are paying taxes, many of them may be at the highest level. Now, in the past, so how did all this start? When did these pools start getting collected? It started in 1999 with the setting up of the Investor Education and Protection Fund with an amendment to the Companies Bill. The idea at that time was very laudable. It was that money which used to be lying with the company, so you could make a claim if there were problems, would now be shifted to a central pool called the Investor Education and Protection Fund, IEPF for short. And this money would be utilized for investors, investor awareness, maybe running helplines, maybe giving them access to information. The objective of government taking over money is always good. It doesn't work like that. So the idea was that if for 7 years there's been no claim, the money is lying with the company, it should be transferred to the central pool. The minute it was transferred, the finance ministry said, give us that money, it has to come into the Consolidated Fund of India. And only whatever could be used for investor awareness would be released to the Ministry of Company Affairs. Why do I know all this? Because in the first 4 years, that's 2 terms of 2 years, I was on one of the committees, on the committee that was set up on how to manage this money and what to do with it. And I know for a fact that everybody, every industry association, Institute of Chartered Accountants, company secretaries, all wanted that money. And we did manage to give it to a good cause. But within 4 years, things changed. The bureaucrats realized they don't want to mess around with NGOs dictating where the money will go. It doesn't matter that they are the only ones who care about people's money. The bureaucrats needed control. They got CII in, they threw out all the NGOs, they stopped accreditation, and in fact, they set up another committee to say whatever had been done with the money until then, from 2000 to 2016 was all wrong. Now they were going to set up the IPF authority. By then, remember, people who after 7 years found that their money had gone to a pool realized that they couldn't claim this money back. It was gone forever. So this started litigation because people pointed out that in India, probates, succession, even a litigation. So if you inherited something from your parents, uncle, whoever, and you get into a fight with your siblings, that can drag on for 10 to 15 years. Why should all of you lose the money just because you can't access it? It took a long time, 16 years, mind you, from 1999 to 2016, before they recognized this. In 2017, they said an IPF authority would be set up and people could actually make a claim. They created a website, which is a really ugly sub-site in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. We've given you the HTTP web address here. Click on it. The first thing you see is it's an unsecured site. The second thing that you will see is a pop-up which says, please do not go to touts, middlemen. This process of getting your shares back is simple and online, and they actually publish a list of all those whose shares have and dividend and interest has been transferred to the IPF authority. So the government says that here's a picture. That simple, easy, don't fall into the clutches of agents, brokers, middlemen. Now, try getting that money back and you will notice it is such a humongous job. It is almost impossible for an ordinary person to get through those hurdles and get their money back. The only way they do get it is through an agent or a consultant. And there are good ones. There are people who are doing a reasonable job. They charge you anywhere between 15 to 50%. How to know who's the right one is tough, but a lot of people have found that that's the only way to get their money back. Now, here's another interesting thing. Most people don't even know that they have shares lying there or when they have been transferred. So it is these consulting firms and agents who actually go through the list. They find your KYC, PAN number, get your address, what the IPF should be doing. And they track you down and say, look, here you have shares. So a few weeks ago, a friend of mine said, somebody called him up and said, you have 7.5 lakh rupees worth of L&T shares. It's like a lottery. You didn't even know about it. Surely all that effort comes at a price. But think about another fact. When in 1999 IPF was started, it had 400 crores. This money has kept growing. And right then, I had argued when I was on that IPF board that it's a shame that there is 400 crores here, which had eventually grown to 1300 and now it's nearly 4,000 crore. That this money should be returned. So if IPF does anything, it should be to track people down and tell them these are your shares, submit the documents and take your shares back. But nobody is interested in doing it. It's not their money. It belongs to the public. So find a way to make use of it for COVID or for other things, maybe even for relief and rehabilitation. Why do they care? But we have to care because it's our money. In 2008, I had argued that there should be no room for fresh unclaimed dividends accruing here, because by now KYC standards were strict, PAN numbers have to be there. If you have a company, you even have a video, there is no way that you can't be traced. Now, in 2012, I was invited as the only independent member of a committee on financial markets and investor protection. The name is misleading. All it wanted to do was set up the IPF authority. Who was given the job of doing this? The Institute of Chartered Accountants. What does the institute do? The chartered accountants are the ones who should help in returning the money. Instead, they are busy conducting financial awareness seminars and get funded from this IEPF money, which again, repeatedly point out, belongs to people like you and me. I wrote to the then MCA Secretary Naveed Masood. All my suggestions, even in the committee, were completely ignored because it was a special purpose committee meant to do something. Now, made a partisan assessment of what we had been funding, like an investor helpline, watch out investors, and said there's no need for it. So, full control now with the bureaucrats. Same bureaucrats get rewarded for this. So, successive MCA secretaries did nothing to make it easier for people to file claims. Even now, it is extremely difficult. Mr. Masood, of course, went on to be on the boards of SEBI, on the board of the NSE, because this is how the system works. In fact, so what IEPF did, why am I dwelling at length on this? Because this was copied by everybody. Insurance regulators said after 10 years, give us the money. This goes into a government pool. I'll come to it later. The RBI said after 10 years, all bank interests, unclaimed bank accounts, frozen accounts, transfer it to a depositor education and awareness fund. I'm going to come to how much money there is over there. Now, juxtapose this against the fact that none of these banks or regulators want to do anything to return the money to us and the write-offs that are made, which are in lakhs of crores. That means people can borrow, that will go away, but your legitimate money will be so hard to take back that you would rather leave it alone and let the government have it. Let's look at all the numbers now that have been accumulated. Economic Times wrote in July 2021 that this number that I've been quoting of 82,025 crore. And as it points out, even at 6%, the interest on this amount alone would be 5,000 crore. Easy enough to get any kind of database from the best companies with the best bids, certainly better than the glitchy tax network that we have created or GST or whatever else. And leave it to the private guys. If the private sector did it, I'm sure our technology people could do it. Now, look at how money has been increasing in the RBI's Depositor Education Fund. This is money that is in bank accounts as well as the interest that accumulates on it. In 31st March 2021, the amount was 39,264.25 crore. 39, that's nearly 40,000 crore. This is up from 33,114 crore just a year ago, March 2020. And in March 2019, it was 18,381 crore. That means pandemic starts, more people passed away, their families don't know about their accounts. In fact, you can bet that it's going to increase again substantially in 2022. This is our money. This is people's money. Their families may be desperate after COVID. The government and its regulators have to be made accountable to return it. Now, if our bureaucrats, regulators were judged by how much money is returned, if the Parliamentary Standing Committee, which is headed by an opposition leader, asked these questions and said, we don't want to look at numbers increasing, we want to see a 20% decline every year, think about how different it would be. There would be just a few lakh rupees in those funds. If somebody said you will not get a post-retirement posting, you will not get to be directors on companies like NSE and BSE, if you haven't performed as a regulator and these funds don't reduce, you haven't done something out of the box different. They want salaries like the private sector, but the private sector has key result areas. This ought to be a key result area for all our bureaucrats. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So I told you about money in the RBI's DEF, and it is indeed DEF. The insurance regulator in March 2018 had 15,167 crore in unclaimed policies. Now, this would have increased substantially by several crores. This is money transferred after 10 years. It goes not to their own fund, but to the Senior Citizens Welfare Fund of the government, which was set up in 2015. In fact, this fund has been collecting from everybody. So not just insurance, unclaimed deposits in all small saving instruments, public provident fund, employees provident fund organization, post office savings, senior citizen savings account, then all the Vikas Patras, Kisan Vikas Patra, Indira Vikas Patra, all of it goes there. And you know how difficult it is to claim from post offices? So a lot of people just give up. Maybe sometimes children are well off, they're abroad. They say, it doesn't matter, it's not worth our effort because it's just too difficult. The Economic Times, same article I quoted, estimates that EPFO alone has 26,497 crore as of March 2019. As I say repeatedly, that would only have increased. Another report by Zee Business has put this at a stupendous 58,000 crore. In fact, if Zee is correct, then this is not 82,000 crore, but well over 1 lakh crore. Another estimate says Public Provident Fund alone has 22,000 crore. Then mutual funds. Now, mutual funds have unclaimed money. You don't put money into a mutual fund never to get it back. So people are apparently not taking it back. It means that people don't know how to. They have either passed away or they're ill or they've forgotten or they've lost data. But this money is lying around. It's not small. 17,880 crore. Last heard. Number may be much higher today. Every mutual fund virtually for the last 15 years is very, very strict KYC requirements. Why don't they make an effort to track you down? If they hear that the person who had an account is dead, they should ask the heirs, I think you stand to inherit, give us details, get a succession certificate, take this money. It has to be their responsibility. We have jokes like having a board of trustees. The trustees are not bothered because this, like I said, is not a concern for anybody. Returning our money is never anybody's concern. IEPF, hold your breath. I said it started with 400 crores in 1999. It is now 4,100 crore. And they say that this is 4,100 crore after settling 15,000 claims. And believe me, these 15,000 claims are just showing off. They would not have happened without the very consultants and middlemen that they're warning you about, because the system remains so difficult and impossible to access. Like I said, why does the money remain unclaimed? Because people have either passed away, they have not written nominations. We are a country of low financial literacy. Even nomination itself is a ridiculous process because it only asks for a name. You have to be able to prove who that is. Are you a child? Do you have the right to inherit? Are you one of 4 people who has to inherit? So in fact, the nomination process has to change. They have to have a nomination along with some KYC, PAN or whatever, so that you know exactly who's supposed to get it. And we have to even deal with things like wills, succession, probates. We have the most ridiculous succession rules in India, which make it a nightmare for anyone to do anything post a person's death. That does not give government the right to use this like an estate duty and collect the money that belongs to ordinary people. If today you are able to track people by PIN codes, geography, KYC, create a website. Each one of these people has to create a website. Now, RBI asks all banks to put up a list of people whose money has been transferred to DEF. IRDS does the same thing. That's not good enough because you have to put it in a central list where people should be able to access it on the basis of a name, go alphabetically, search geographically, maybe search by a PAN number, so that it's easier. And they have the money. They're sitting on the money. They don't even need to spend the money. Just the interest alone will be enough to create a world-class, absolutely fantastic technology that will be easy to access. But the question is, why is the government not doing it? Do you know that there is somebody called Jivantika.com, Jivantika Consulting, which has done exactly this, created an app, put all the names. They charge, this is free, so you can go and search on that app to see if there is any shares or dividend owed to you from IEPF. If you need their help, they also give you pre-filled forms and they will charge you a fee to get the money back because, like I said, that's a tedious process. If a private consultant can do it, what gives our regulators and our government the right to sit on our money without making the slightest effort and putting in their annual reports year after year that this money has increased? Let us start putting pressure on the government to ensure that this money is decreased by 25% every year, given back to the rightful heirs, people who it belongs to and cannot stay with the government. Let's use technology and let's insist that the government uses it. What are our members of parliament doing? We have a joint parliamentary committee on finance. Let's ask them to start acting on our behalf. That is what we elected them for. If you agree, join the fight and spread the word. Send this video out to others and become a subscriber. Thank you.